Welcome to chapter 14. This chapter we're going to look at tillage and establishing the crop for growing. So three things that we're going to look at. We'll look at tillage, establishing the crop, and then successful seeding. We'll also look at some seed laws as well. So some key concepts. So before we can plant the seed, it's really important to have a seed bed that is correct for that seed. So the establishment of the crop is very important. The pre-planting is extremely important and has a very multi-step process connected with it. So two types of tillage that we'll talk about: conventional and conservation. We'll look at how a lot of those crops are grown from commercial seed. We'll talk about some seed laws. We'll talk about planting depth, seeding rate, seeding dates, and how those are all important to make sure that they're as correct as they could be. And then we'll look at how those crops are being established, whether that's by broadcasting or drilling in that seed into that seed bed. So tillage. First off, we talked about two types of tillage, and we'll kind of go into those here in just a second. But the whole purpose of tilling it is to prepare that land, to prepare that soil for planting. So in some cases, if you have a soil that's very clayey, it might need a little bit more tillage than something that has a sandy or a silty loam incorporated with it. So here's some 5 major goals that we have with tillage. If there's any sort of residue on that ground, it's really important to incorporate it into that soil, whether it's into the O layer, the A layer, or leave it on top like wheat stubble. That is really important. And then next, the next portion would be to control those pests, whether you're doing that inorganically or organically, whether you're spreading pesticides or whatever your management plan wants. Then that is probably one of the most important parts of the tillage process as well. And then incorporating any sort of fertilizer, lime, manures. We incorporate chicken manure into our seed bed by tilling it up before we plant anything in it. Preparation of the seed bed, so making sure the seed, if you need so many inch rows, you have that incorporated already in there. And then aeration of those soils is extremely vital. So making sure that soil will be able to breathe, making sure water will be able to infiltrate into the soil. And so those are kind of our goals of tillage. Okay, so now let's look at conventional till. So this is a 2-step process. We use a primary tillage and a secondary tillage. So primary tillage, we use a moldboard plow, and I'll show you a picture of that in just a second. So this just has shears and then flips, and not a lot of the residue will go into the soil because of this moldboard plow, more so of the secondary tillage that we'll see that. So the secondary tillage has discs and harrows, and if you were to ask any farmer what causes the most trouble mechanical wise, they would probably say the discs and the harrows because it's just so complex in some cases. But the whole purpose of that secondary tillage is to smooth out the soil. So here's a picture of the moldboard plow on the left-hand side and the disc plow on the right-hand side. So you can see the moldboard plow there. That has kind of a curved shape, and then you can see the furrow wheels that will kind of break up, kind of eat, what is a good word, to eat that stubble or whatever needs to be decomposed into the soil, that residue. And then on the right-hand side there, you see that disc plow. So those discs, and if there's rock in that soil, those discs can break. And then you see the furrow wheel that kind of helps smooth everything out. So mulch tillage, we use a chisel plow, and that's been very commonly used in America for for tillage type, and this is going to provide just a little minimal incorporation of those residues, so it's not going to have an intense part in putting any sort of residue from the top to the bottom or to the topsoil. And it involves 1 to 3 tillage operations, and the secondary tillage or with a disc is used after this mulch tillage. So this is what a chisel plow looks like, and you can kind of imagine in your mind if those chisel blades there. That's just kind of eating up, getting that seed bed ready, and getting that soil ready for that secondary tillage with the disc. No-till is our next type of tillage system that we'll talk about. This is a system that does not use any sort of primary tillage because it really maximizes soil organic matter and minimizes soil erosion and helps conserve water within our soil. So if you no-till, you have to use a special planter that will open up the seed bed for where you want the seed to be deposited into. We see this more so in northern settings of the United States, just because it delays the spring from warming up. So, and this is used for different types of soil textures as well. It's kind of gotten extremely popular just within the last 20 to 25 years. About 62 million acres have used no-till, so it's extremely popular. And again, it's just being able to maximize that soil organic matter and able to minimize soil erosion and keep that water in the soil as much as we can. So ridge till, I'll show you a picture of a ridge till in just a second, but this is for row crops like soybeans or corn. Crop is planted directly into the ridge, and then it's really important to reduce the water movement through the soil so it's infiltrating into the soil, not running off. And as that ridge becomes warmer and dry faster than the surrounding soils, it's able to keep all of those nutrients within that where that seed would be. So here's an example of what that ridge till looks like. So you can see before planting, we have that crop residue, we have a cover crop, and then after planting, so we've taken off that cover crop, or it's been disintegrated into the ground. We have a band of fertilizer right by that seed. That first cultivation, you can see that there's that soybean crop coming up, and then that crop residue is there throughout that process, but you can see that crop was planted on that ridge till. All right, strip tillage, this requires very special equipment, so you have to have a strip tiller for this, and this just tills between the row residue and the same as a no-till system. It's more used in the south where those warmer spring beds are more common. In northern regions, doesn't work as well because that residue will then reduce that soil temperature, and the whole point is to get that seed bed in there quicker in the springtime. And if we're reducing that soil temperature, for example, corn, you got to plant corn around a 50 to a 54 degree mark. That might reduce that soil temperature, which is not good. So here's what that strip tiller looks like. You can see it there on the left-hand side and what it will do on the right-hand side there. So you can see there's still some corn stubble within this ground. So that farmer's going to plant wheat right into the crevices of the corn, and where that seed bed looks prepared.